Well, welcome to our discussion of trying to understand the Birchot Yaakov. We know that as Yaakov was heading out of this world, he blessed Yosef's sons, but tonight we want to focus on the blessing to the 12 sons. What is the essence of it? I mean, is it just 12 different things? Oh, to you I give my golden ring, and you're going to be a diamond dealer, and you're really good at selling stamps. What is the essence? Is there any organization to these 12 blessings that he gives to these 12 sons? So we have to look at it. Now, it's very difficult because it's in poetry, and poetry is always challenging. So we understand, what is it? What kind of thing is it altogether? So let's take a look. We welcome everyone here today. Welcome to Mark and Vadia and everyone else we greeted before. All right, here we go. Well, the Chagall was the famous artist, put together beautiful windows depicting the 12 tribes. And this pretty much, is a good description. Ruvain was rejected because of what he did, but there was also an incident with the mandrakes. Naphtali is compared to a gazelle. Asher is very fruitful land. Benjamin is like a wolf. Ze'ev, Judah is like a lion. Then it's like a snake, and Issachar is like a donkey. And Yosef is also very fruitful. God is good with the troops. Zvulun is a merchant. Levi eventually becomes a priest, but it's not in these blessings. So let's see what happens. Let's take a look. Firstly, first question is, what is a blessing? What do you mean the blessings of Jacob? What is a blessing? So what are the options? What are the options? Go ahead. What could a blessing be? When I say, I'll give you a bracha, what could it mean? Or if Yaakov says, I'll give you a bracha, what could it mean? So we have these options here. And actually at the beginning, he says, let me gather and I will tell you what's going to happen in the end of days. That sounds like a prediction. But in the end, he says, these are the blessings that he gave them. And each one, according to his blessing, he blessed them. So it was a blessing. As we call them colloquially today, the Birchot Yaakov. So it's just a blessing. Is it a prayer? In other words, I hope these things will happen, but I don't know if they will. As a matter of fact, the rabbis always say, and Anshei Leibowitz emphasized this point, but it's obvious, that prophecies are from God, and therefore they're immutable promises. But we're not immutable. We could change. If we mess it up, some things won't happen. Of course, we believe that eventually all the prophecies of the Jewish people will happen because we believe in the Jewish people. We believe the Jewish people will eventually repent, but it does depend on us. So you could predict something about a tribe, but the tribe could take a left turn or a right turn, as we will see. You could also say it's a hope. It just, that would be very light to say he was hoping that these things would happen. It's kind of like, we're talking about Jacob. He has prophetic power, so why wouldn't he use it? So is it a prophecy? Rav Ram ben Rambam, the son of the Rambam, says, look, right there. It says, I will tell you what happened in the end of days. So it's a prophecy. But Rashi says, no, but obviously he didn't tell them what was going to happen. We're looking for like the end of days, like, the Mashiach, when's the Mashiach coming, things like that. And we don't get it. It's disappointing. This one's going to be like a donkey. So where's the big promise about the end of days? Although, on the other hand, there is something about that Judah is going to rule until a certain point. What is that point? Shiloh, until Shiloh. Is there some allusion to the Messianic era there? And everyone always tries to figure it out. Is there a special secret here? So the question of prediction is alluded to at the beginning. Maybe that's like a prophecy. Is it just a prayer? Maybe some of the things don't always happen. We'll have to see. Do any of the things not happen? Maybe a hope. Let's take a look. So let's see. So you want to say it's a prophecy, huh? Well, Zvulun shall dwell among the coasts of the seas, and his side will be at Sidon. I don't think so. If you look over here, Zvulun lands out over here in the middle of the Jezreel Valley, near Mount Tabor. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the intersection of Naphtali, Issachar, and Zvulun, that's where Mount Tabor is, and that's where Devorah gathered the three tribes of these three tribes to fight. But it says right here that he's supposed to dwell on the coast. And Devorah says, no, Asher l'chof yamim yishkon. Asher was the one who lived on the coast. You say, Finkelstein, you're making these things up. When Jacob says he's going to live on the coast, he's going to live on the coast. Well, one problem with that theory, Joshua 19. The Zebulites will live in Yakna'am, Sarid. He says, Chazirot Tabor near Tabor. Right? We don't know the names of all these places, but you can see some of the things. It doesn't say that they're on the border with the ocean. It should say, right? It should say something about living on the coast. It doesn't. These are cities that are inland, like something related to Tabor. Debratha, maybe he's from Devorah or something. Anyway, so Joshua clearly says, in the book of Joshua, it says that our map is correct. Zebulun does not live on the coast. So if you want to say that it's a prediction, he's a pretty bad predictor. If it's a prophecy, it's a false prophet, God forbid. So there's something, so maybe it's just a prayer or a hope. We got to think about this. And then you say, well, no, it's prediction. And what about Shimon and Levi? Their weapons are lawlessness, violence. Let not my person be included in their council. I don't want to be in their group. Let not be the council among their assembly. For when angry, they slay men. And when pleased, they uproot oxen. Cursed is their anger. He doesn't curse them. These are supposed to be blessings. He curses their anger. Rashi says that's what you do for children. You curse the anger, you don't curse the person. And their wrath was so relentless, I will divide them among Jacob. I will scatter them in Israel. He promised this to scatter them. Well, he does scatter them, but it's very different. Shimon is sort of swallowed up with the Jews. Probably some of us are from Shimon because Shimon was sort of swallowed up in there with Judah. He lives somewhere in the Negev over there. He's like a Bedouin. Who knows where he lived? But the Levites were all over the place. They had 32 cities, 36 cities of refuge of Levites, with 6 cities of refuge. So they're spread out, but it's completely different. Shimon lives out the prophecy of being cursed, that he's just roaming around. Maybe they're teachers, according to Rashi, but Levi turns it into a plus. Yes, he doesn't have a particular inheritance because God is his inheritance, because he teaches Israel, and he has the temple, he gets tithing and things like that. So rather than being a prediction that Shimon and Levi are doomed or cursed, it was fungible. It was more of a prediction which didn't come true. Jacob would probably be pleased to learn that Levi turned out to be one of the best ones of anybody. Of course, Moses, Aaron, they all come from Levi. So Pinchas. So it doesn't seem to do too well as a prediction or a prophecy. Although in this case, Shimon and Levi were scattered, but just for very different reasons than the fact that they're angry. And here's a hint as to what it might be. In the middle of all the different blessings, it says that Dan will be like a serpent on the road, like we showed in the picture, the viper on the path. He bites the heels, so the rider is thrown backwards. So Dan is very good with military things, or maybe he's like a terrorist or some sort of like Samson. I wait for your deliverance, O Lord. I wait for your deliverance. That's a prayer. What's a prayer doing in the middle of the blessings? I thought this was a blessing of Jacob. Jacob's blessings. That's the topic of tonight's class. You guys came here tonight to learn about Jacob's blessings. And what does he do? He says, God, I look forward to your deliverance. What's that got to do with it? What is that doing in the middle? What to say your prayers? Before you go to sleep, you say your prayers. What are you saying a prayer in the middle of the blessings? What do you think? And then he goes on, the Gad shall be raided by the raiders. What's in the middle of the?
Well, I mean, if Dan's a warmonger, if he's a hero, then who's going to deliver the Jewish people? You would think would be Dan. So it sounds like Yaakov is asking God to use Dan to deliver the Jewish people.
I would put it on Judah. I mean, if I had to put my bet on who's going to save the
No,
Jews,
but
I put my bet on Judah. Say Judah's going to Judah will have the leadership, and I look forward
you
to
have
the
the
redemption
leadership,
because
but you
the
have to have an
Redeemer comes from
army.
David.
You have to have an army. Is Judah the leadership, or is he also the
Sure.
army?
Oh, okay. We'll see. We will see. Good
Okay.
point. We will see. Is Judah involved in the military? Right. It looks like maybe just Dan and Gad. Right. In the middle of this military thing, he asks for deliverance. Right. He's talking about military. So he says, well, the camps, the Gad with the camps that we saw at the beginning. So he says, I'm looking forward to salvation, military victory. Okay. So that's an idea. But here's another idea. Not that it's a prayer for military victory, or as Rashi says, a tikkun, he sees future prediction. Again, Rashi's on the prediction thing. Rashi says, some predictions are in here. Some were lost, but some are here. Lost because God didn't want to tell him. But he says, here's a prediction, there'll be a Samson. And then he says, he has a vision. Hey, Samson's going to die. He's going to pull the house down. He's going to die with the Philistines. He says, hey, guys, the Ramban says, I don't want a Pyrrhic victory where the Jewish leader dies in the middle of the thing, like Elazar the Maccabee. I want to have a real victory where God will really redeem us. So that's all very nice. But here's another idea. What do we say? It could be a prediction. It could be a prayer. If it's only a prayer, we understand why in the middle, smack in the middle of all of the blessings, what does he do? He makes a prayer, because the whole thing's a prayer. He's praying that things will pan out the way he wants them to. And based on this suggestion, there's various rabbis at Gush. I want to thank my old friend Tzvi Grummet, Rabbi Tzvi Grummet. He wrote a wonderful book about Bereshit, and he has a lot of what I said tonight is based on what he said. And Tamir Granot, I don't know him personally, but he's my Mechon Herzog at Gush Etzion. I want to thank him for his lectures and his writing about this. But in any event, they suggest that right in the middle is a prayer, because the whole thing is one big prayer. It's structured that we have a whole bunch of stuff before, a whole bunch of stuff after, and then smack in the middle, he says, God, save the Jews, because it's all kind of a little bit of a prayer. I mean, these rabbis suggested that it's at the centerpiece, and I'm suggesting, I'm not sure they did, I'm suggesting that because the whole thing is a prayer, that's why it's at the center. It's at the center, as we'll show in a moment, that is the center. The between Dan and Gad is the center. Because here's the structure. This is a beautiful structure laid out by Tamir Granot, and I think Tzvi Grummet goes in his footsteps. Look at this. We don't have to, when we talk about the structure of the blessings, we can reject the rejects. I don't mean to be overly flippant. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi are still part of the Jews. Obviously, Levi makes a tikkun and he becomes one of the most prominent tribes. But in many ways, they are rejected. Reuven goes to the other side of the Jordan. Shimon is lost among the Judean monster, and in a good sense. And Levi is scattered, doing all his good deeds. So they're rejected. Reuven is supposed to be firstborn. He's not. Shimon and Levi are too angry. He doesn't want to have anything to do with them. So they're out. Now, so where do we start? We start with Judah. Judah has leadership. The leadership will never leave from his hand. That's what it says. It's military. He's like a lion. Nobody messes with him. And he's got land. He's got land that's so fat, he's going to have a lot of wine. You could tie a donkey to the grapevine, because the grapevine is so sturdy because he's got so many grapes. That's the middle where the Gush Etzion, my yeshiva was, Chevron, that's where they have wine. It's very good to go wine. Wine that they're just discovering now how good the wine is. Zebulun and Issachar, it's land and commerce, meaning Zebulun makes a living based on commerce because he lives near the coast, although that changed later. Somebody's going to live near the land, near the coast, and do commerce, because Israel is a port country. One very significant thing about Israel is it's on Mediterranean. You can trade with all the important people. You can trade with Egypt. You can trade across the way with the Phoenicians up north. You can go across and go to the Greeks, the Grecians or the early Grecians, and early Romans, Italians. And then you can even go, if you want to go very far, you can go all the way to Spain and the Straits of Gibraltar, and you can trade over there. So that's Zebulun, and Issachar enjoys the land. So it's about land. It's about making a living, whether it's through land like Issachar, it's beautiful land, he pays a lot of taxes, or the Zebulun, he does merchant. Of course, rabbis have a different idea. Issachar learns Torah, and Zebulun goes out to work, but we're not using that particular model right now. We're looking at the simple meaning of the text, not the Midrashic one. Dan is a military guy, as we showed, and then Gad is a military guy, and in the middle, he prays for the salvation of. Look, it's in the middle of the whole thing. That prayer for salvation is in the middle of the entire blessing. It's structured like this. And Asher and Naphtali, just like if Zebulun and Issachar are about land, Asher and Naphtali are also land and perhaps military. And it's not clear if Naphtali is gazelle because his land produces fruit so quickly, and his good news that he brings is that he won the war, or that his land produces fruit very quickly, and therefore the good news he gives is that he already had the first oranges, he already had the first mangoes. He tells everybody the good news. So we're not sure. It's either a blessing of land. Asher and Naphtali are either both land, one is land and one is military. But it could be they're both land. It's a poem, so it's very unclear how to interpret. And Joseph is land and military, and the question of leadership is not as clear in Joseph. So if you ask who won the contest between Joseph and Judah, what's the answer?
Judah.
Judah, he's got the leadership. So the staff will never leave his hand. So he wins. But notice the prominence is given very much to which two tribes? The prominence
Joseph and Judah.
Joseph, they get 5 verses. Nobody gets 5 verses. Now, what about Benjamin? So what happened to Benjamin? Second. What about there it is. Benjamin. I don't know if you can see on the bottom of the screen. What's Benjamin doing on the bottom? He's military. He's like a wolf. Why is he on the bottom? So these rabbis at Gush, they say, you started with the rejects. You went with the rejects. Rejects? Benjamin has the temple, the holy temple in Jerusalem. Yedid Hashem is the beloved of God. Benjamin's not rejected. Yeah, but he almost was. The story of Pelagius began at the end of the book of Judges. He was so inhospitable in their country, in their tribe, that they almost had a civil war and wiped them out and refused to marry them. Somehow they were saved, and it changed. But there's something rejected about Benjamin, or Benjamin, like Shimon, gets swallowed up by Judah. We don't call ourselves Judah Benjamin, right? Judah P. Benjamin. We don't call ourselves Judah P. Benjamin. I'm joking. What do we call ourselves? We call ourselves Judeans, Jews, because Benjamin got lost. So it could be that at the edges you have the marginal characters, even though I don't like to think of Benjamin that way, but it's a suggestion based on the structure. And again, based on this structure, the salvation prayer is smack in the middle, right in the middle of the two military things. And notice the colorized chart that I made here. Leah is in red, and Rachel is in purple, and I'm including Leah's concubines and Rachel's concubines. If you're a concubine of Leah, you get red. If you're a concubine of Rachel, you get purple. And so notice you have reject of Leah at the top, reject of Rachel at the bottom. You have the two big folks at the bookends are Judah and Joseph, Leah and Rachel. Right smack in the middle, you have it flips. As you think you do Judah, Zebulun, Issachar, and then you should do Gad, or Gad is the firstborn of Zilpah, of Leah's concubine. He should be on the first part, but they switch it around just to make everything a little bit mixed up, to make everything more integrated. He put Dan, who is from Bilhah, which is from Rachel. He put him at the before the prayer break, and he put Gad, who in the Joseph section, and he mixed up the two concubine children, Asher and Naphtali. He put them together, almost like a Zebulun and Issachar. Rabbis always associate them together. They were two last children of Leah born together. Asher and Naphtali are from different mothers, and they're different branches of the family, but they both get the land blessing. They both get the land blessing, or some sort of military blessing. So if it's all land, it's very parallel to this. If it's land and military, then it's sort of, we have land, military, and then we have land, military. So it's very, very symmetrical. What else did I want to say? One more thing. Anybody notice anything else here? What else? Yeah. So now, I can say a very important point. Overall, what is Jacob doing? This Tamir Granot, he teaches at Kush, he says, what do we got here overall? What is he doing? Is he just saying, is it like, a laundry list of, and I give my earrings, I give to Mendel, but my tea set goes to Shmerel. Is that what we got over here? Is it a hodgepodge? There's no hodgepodge. Very systematic. And actually, what we have here is laying out the keys of a future state. The state of Israel, whatever form it takes, has to have three major components. You need agriculture and commerce. You need business to make a living, to have a GDP. GNP, national product. You have to have military prowess. You have to have a military, right? We can dream of a peaceful world, Isaiah, but that's not how it works. In this world, you want to have a country. People are going to say, no, you can't have a country. We want to have a country. And you're going to have a military. So that's important. And you have to have leaders. You have to have leadership. So he says, leader is going to be Judah, but Joseph, something about Joseph. Land, commerce, well, certainly Joseph and Judah will have a big chunk of that, really good. If you look at the tribes, Judah's got land that is good. This part is good for grazing, and this part is good for grapes. Okay, and agriculture, and then the coast is good for agriculture, except the Philistines are usually hanging out there. This is also Judean territory, except in this map they don't bother putting the Judeans there because very often the Philistines took over that area. But it doesn't have to be that way. David took over a lot of Philistines. Ephraim and Manasseh are in heartland, right? They also have the grape country over here, and they also go up to the Jezreel Valley and also have all the coastal stuff, which today we're using for population for high risers, but you could use it for agriculture because it's a plain, okay? And they've got the plains of the Jordan also, which are very good for growing as well. That's the part that the Israeli government doesn't want to give up because it's a very good breadbasket over there. The hills are all the way through here, and then there's a break in the hills over here where it's very fertile. Okay, so Ephraim, Manasseh, and so Judah and Joseph, which is Ephraim and Manasseh, they get a good deal. So they have good land too. But for military, we have, of course, Joseph and Judah in the lead, but we also have Dan and Gad, right? We have some good folks, even Benjamin, helping out with the military. Good. So it's not a hodgepodge. It's the three key elements of the Jewish people, and he lays out how he sees it happening. Although, to my view, there's a bit of a prayer there that it all turned out this way, and some of it didn't turn out exactly that way, for good reasons and bad reasons. Right? Shimon went in a maybe negative direction, maybe Benjamin, but Levi went in a good direction, and then Zebulun and Asher seem to have different fates a little bit than what he had prayed. Who wins? So, who wins? This is a wonderful verse, which when I was in Gush, they like to emphasize this verse. It's a verse in Divrei Hamim. No, I'm sorry, not yet. We'll get to that in a second. Who wins? So Rashi says, nobody wins. These are the 12 tribes. This is what Jacob said to them. And he blessed them, each one according to their blessing, he blessed them. Each one? Huh, I thought you had rejects. What about the rejects? Rashi says, nah, were not some of his sons who did not bless, but whom on the contrary he reproached, he yelled at them. But there's an explanation. And this is it that their father spake to them. All that has been said above, whether it be a blessing or reproach. You might therefore think that he does not bless Reuven, Shimon, Levi at all. So the scripture states, and he blessed them. The 12 tribes alluded to, which implies all of them were blessed. Each man according to his blessing, each according to the blessing that was to come in the future to each and every one. Again, Rashi does see an element of the future, and each and every one. It was appropriate. Everyone thought, wow, that's really appropriate for me. That's my personality. I'm good at running or military, fighting, whatever it is. So each one was appropriate. But according to Rashi, who wins? Nobody. Everybody gets blessed. Jacob learned his lessons. There are no favorites over here. Everybody wins. Oh, that's a beautiful part. If Jacob learned something that, Jake, did he learn anything? After all, he favored Joseph, and then he ran into all kinds of troubles. His whole life was ruined because he favored one son. The rabbi said his coat wasn't even so special. It's a stupid coat. It's worth maybe $10 more than the other coat. It's ridiculous. Because of this, his whole life is ruined. The rabbi said you shouldn't do stuff like that. So did he learn anything? Yes. Look at this. He crafted the 12 blessings where, here's something for this side of the family, but I didn't forget the other side. And then the other side, but don't forget the other side, right? He got the red, got the purple. He's right. This one gets the gold earrings. This one gets the diamond nose rings. It's even. There's Leah. There's right. He mixes it up. The Dan and Gad was an effort to show. I don't have any favorites here. This is not all about Leah. I'll throw in something from Rachel, and we'll get to Joseph later. It's very even. Even 5 verses for this one, 5 verses that. Now, of course, look, Judah and Joseph are the main. Geez, what can we do about that? But everybody gets something. Like Rashi says, everybody gets a bonus. So that's one view. Everybody gets a bonus. He blessed them. It should have said, every man according to his blessing, he blessed them. Why does it say he blessed them? But since in the blessings he ascribed Judah personally strength of a lion, to Benjamin the wolf, and Naphtali the hind, one might think he did not include all of them. Maybe can Judah be like a wolf? So he says, Scripture therefore states, he blessed them, each of them personally, and all of them together, extending all the blessings to each of them. So it's not even about Benjamin. These are the 12 things you get. Everybody gets a little bit of everything. It's not total. Yisachar, you have to be a farmer. You can't be a merchant. No, everybody can get everything. You can find a little bit of other people in you, right? Let's say if one brother is very smart, one brother is very athletic. There's smartness in the athletic one. There's athleticism in the smart one. It's never, if you're brothers, you have the same qualities. People are twins. It's just what we emphasize. That's all. Okay. So that's one version, that there's no winner. It's a beautiful symmetry, family. It's all one big happy family. But we couldn't analyze it and say, wait a second. We know what a blessing looks like. We've seen them before. Isaac blessed Jacob. Let's see who got a blessing more similar to the one Isaac gave to Jacob. So let's see, was it Judah or was it Joseph? So what was the blessing that Yitzchak blessed Jacob when he thought he was Esau? He said, God should give you the dew of the heaven, the fat of the earth. Fat of the earth means making money from agriculture, abundance of grain and wine. And he also said, let the people serve you and nations bow to you. Be a master over your brothers. You have to have sort of be better than the brothers. Let your mother's sons bow to you. Cursed is who curse, blessed is those who bless you. So we noticed 2 things. Number one, you have to have a lot of plenty, and people have to submit to you. Of course, a little different here because Jacob is picking among the brothers, but they're all part of the Jewish people, whereas Esau is rejected. But let's take a look. So let's look at the blessing of Judah. Your brothers will praise you. Your father's sons will bow down to you. It's right there. You see? Judah got the blessing that Jacob got, that the nations will bow to you, and you'll be master over your brothers. The brothers will praise you. Your father's sons will bow low to you. It says right there that Judah is the guy. He's the king. He's the chief. Scepter shall not pass. Of course, then there's also his teeth are whiter than milk because he has a lot of milk and he has a lot of goats. Don't think cows. Israel's not a land flowing with milk of cows. It's sheep. Sheep have goat cheese. So it's very nice. So both the agricultural blessing and the blessing of mastery over the brothers go to Judah. What about Joseph? I don't know. He's got a lot of grace. He's good at military. Archers bitterly assail him, but they can't get him. His bow is tight. He's good at military. Okay, so is Judah, right? He's like a lion's whelp. He crouches down, and the kings who dare rouse him? Nobody can mess with him. The God he gives him a lot of blessings. God should bless you, and the blessings of deep, and the blessings of breast and womb, and he got that. What Joseph really got was more land, more people. He's got two tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim. So he got a lot of they're doing well in the wombs and the breasts. They got a lot of kids. And he tries to give him a very loving blessing. He says, the blessings of your father surpass the blessings of my ancestors. You're getting better brachas than your ancestors got. You could argue that shows that he's getting his father's blessings, but give me the goods. What has he got? He says, well, on the brow of the elect of his brothers. He's the elect of the brothers. No, he's the elect of the brothers. Nazir Achav, he's like the Nazarite. He's the crown over his brothers. It might be leadership. I don't know. Could be. But it's not as clear as the scepter shall not part from Judah. Scepter goes to the king. All the brothers are bowing down to you. It's kind of strange that the one who dreamt that everyone was going to bow to him, he's got nothing to hear about anybody bowing to.
Well, I mean, it was already fulfilled at that point.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Right, maybe he peaked too early, right?
Yeah, I mean,
when you're 12 years old, everybody bowed to you. And the rest of the 3,000 years of history, you got nothing, right? So, yeah, could be. Very good. Excellent. So, then there's another bracha. There's a blessing of Isaac to Jacob when he knew he was Jacob. He said, may he grant you the blessed, he says, may he make you fertile and numerous. Right? That may be more of a Joseph, could be. Again, Joseph gets the double portion. So in some ways, he's the fruitful one. Ben Porah, Joseph. Yeah, it says Ben Porah that Joseph is a son of grace. Another interpretation is he's a son of fruitfulness. So he's fertile. That the fertileness may go to Joseph. It could be. May grant the blessing of Abraham to you and your offspring. May possess the land you are sojourning. So the blessing of Abraham. Yeah, so you could argue that Joseph got the blessing that there's Shira. Joseph got the blessing that blessing of my father. The blessings of your father surpass your father. That's the one I'm giving you now. Surpass the blessings of my ancestors. I don't know. Maybe he's giving the blessing of Abraham. It could be. But again, I want to know where's the goods. Right. So in terms of this blessing, you could argue the second blessing. Could argue that Joseph got it. Again, maybe that makes it even. He gets blessing of fruitfulness. He gets the blessing of the forefathers, and he gets the blessing of the leadership. It's very ironic. The man who dreamt of leadership, he doesn't get the blessing of leadership. Okay. Then there's a private blessing of Jacob to Joseph. Although tonight's class is not focused on that, we need to mention that Joseph there's another deal going on. You see, we asked the question, did Jacob learn anything? Oh boy, did he learn something. If you want to give special things to, let's say, you have a favorite son, favorite daughter, you don't give them the extra diamond ring in front of everybody. You give it to them when no one's looking. So he gathered Joseph. He said, Joseph, I want to talk to you. He comes and he said, oh, you get all the special blessings. You're like, you two children, Ephraim and Anshei, you're going to be like tribes, like Reuven and Shimon. Then he gets everyone together. He says, oh, you get a blessing. You get a blessing. He doesn't tell them that he gave a double portion to another person. He pretends that Joseph is a one-man tribe. He's not. In the private blessings, he said that Ephraim and Manasseh are like Reuben and Shimon. So they're tribes. Nobody else is the grandchildren considered like children. So that's a very special thing. So in that sense, Joseph wins, but not during the blessings. During the 12 blessings, Joseph doesn't seem to win. But in a private deal, he did win. And I mentioned that in Gush, we always talked about this pasuk. A couple of psukim in Divrei Yamim in the Chronicles, chapter 5. Bnei Reuven, in the first Chronicle, Bnei Reuven b'chol Yisrael. And let me tell you the history of the Jews. There was Reuven, he was the first one. Well, he was supposed to be. Then when he defiled his father's bed, his firstborn status, primogeniture, was given to the children of Joseph. Oh. So the transfer was from Reuven not to Judah, Reuven to Yosef. So he's not considered the firstborn. The firstborn status goes to Joseph, but Yehuda beat his brothers. As we said, he's superior above the brothers. He's a Nagid, he's the leader among them. But the firstborn status goes to Joseph. What's firstborn? We know the halachic rule. If you're the firstborn, you get twice, you get primogeniture, you get double portion. What's double portion? You got 2 tribes. Everybody else gets 1 tribe. He's got 2 tribes. Right? You get right? Benjamin had 10 children. He didn't get 10 tribes. He got 1 tribe. Joseph's got 2 children. He gets 2 tribes. So it's a split. Who won? It's a split. Primogeniture, Joseph. It's not in the blessings of the 12 sons. It doesn't say that there, but it says it in a private deal. He says it. Leadership, Judah. This fits with the Ramban. And that which the verse states, you acted foolishly in not keeping the commandments of the Lord. Samuel said to Saul, to King Saul, the first king of Israel, you messed up, you sinned. Otherwise, the Lord would have established your dynasty forever. So Ramban says, let me get it straight. If Saul, who's from Benjamin, did not sin, he would have had a dynasty forever. What do you mean? It says the scepter should never leave Judah. What would happen to David and his covenant? So he says, is that if Saul had not sinned, if Saul would have been perfect, he had to be perfect, his seed, his children, would have dominion in Israel, but not over all of them. And that is the meaning of to Israel, meaning part of Israel. Maybe he would have reigned over the tribes of his mother, over Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh. Maybe he would have been a leader over that section. As Yehuda and Ephraim are considered like 2 nations in Israel. So he would get the Ephraim nation, and he would get the Judah nation. Or he would have reigned under the hand of Judah. Judah would be the leader, and Benjamin would be under him. Saul's descendants would be under David's descendants, as David and Jonathan had worked out. David and Jonathan had worked out a deal like that. So again, the first suggestion of the Ramban, very, very radical suggestion. First suggestion is there were supposed to be 2 nations. There are 2 nations, Ephraim and Judah. Ephraim's leadership could have been Saul, and the Judean leadership has to be David. And there is no winner. It was supposed to be 2 different leaders, either one on top of the other, or one north of the other, one in this area, one in that area. So who's the winner? According to Divrei Yamim theory and the Ramban theory, there's no winner. It was supposed to be mixed. Unfortunately, as history unfolded, the North were very sinful. They got lost the lost tribes. They were very sinful with Saul and got lost. But ideally, it would have been two Israels, 2 leaders. We don't have to choose among the sons. We have 2 nations, and that's within one nation. There will be 2 nations. However, there's another way of looking at the relationship between Judah and Joseph, and it's found in Psalm 78. I think it was somebody I don't remember, or maybe who pointed this out. This is not the entire Psalm. I cut and pasted the parts of the Psalm that are important. They vexed him with their high places. They were terrible. They brought sacrifices all over. They incensed him with their idols. God got really mad because Joseph had all these idols, the northern tribes. God heard it. He was enraged. He rejected Israel, the northern tribes. He forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh. Shiloh was a tabernacle that was given in the tribe of Ephraim. Ephraim was chosen. The temple was in his land for 400 years. The tent he had set among men. He gave his people over to the sword. He killed them. He was enraged at his very own. He rejected the clan of Joseph. Joseph was rejected. Did not choose the tribe of Ephraim. He did choose the tribe of Judah. He built a sanctuary like the heavens, like the established forever. He chose David. He brought him, blah, blah, blah. In other words, what's the relationship of Judah, Joseph? Who won? Well, Joseph was supposed to win, but he messed up. He sinned, and he was rejected, and then Judah took over. It's two different stages of history. And in fact, that's what it could mean, that Judah should never lose the scepter of leadership until he comes to Shiloh. Meaning when Shiloh takes place, then that's a different thing. But there's a different translation. It would say, until Shiloh. Now, the ruler's staff will not leave from his feet until Shiloh, until Judea, until Samaria fell. And then at that point, when Shiloh fell, that's when Judah takes over. So who won? Joseph. After all, Joshua conquered the land of Israel. Who was he from? From Joshua, from Ephraim. Ephraim were the leaders. And then they sinned, and because of a particular unfolding of history, Judah takes over. So who won? Both won, but at different points in history. And that's the idea of Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef. There's supposed to be Mashiach, descendant of Joseph, and then there'll be Mashiach, son of David. This idea, second idea, that they were supposed to be Joseph, and then they sinned, and then Judah became in charge, fits with Ibn Ezra. Ezra says that that's what it means, that the scepter shall not leave Judah until Shiloh. What's Shiloh? Everybody tries to figure out. There are maybe 20 interpretations, because this is the key to the future of the Jewish people. So it says until Shiloh. What's Shiloh? So some people say about the city of Shiloh, and they're going to explain until he comes. Shiloh comes. What does come mean? It's like the coming of the sun. Till Shiloh sets. Till the setting of Shiloh. And the end of Shiloh, because God destroyed Shiloh, as we just said in Psalm 78, and then he chose David. Right? The end of he chose David, and he says, yeah, he says, that's not a bad interpretation. It's not far from the truth, he says. So he believes that that's how you read it. Rulership should not pass from Judah until Shiloh falls. When Shiloh was destroyed in the days of Eli, the beginning of the book of Samuel, then David was chosen. So as soon as Shiloh falls, Joseph is rejected, Benjamin is rejected, Saul is rejected, David takes over for the rest of history. But then there's another point, which I made, some of you already heard me say this, that I notice is here, who is called my son? And Isaac turns to Abraham, he says, my father. And he says, here I am, my son, right? Abraham refers to Isaac as his son, because he's a special son. And God says, take your son. So the Midrash says he has two sons, but he understands who his son is. Yitzchak is his son, even though he has other sons. And then when Isaac's eyes were getting blind, so he calls Esav, his big son, and he says, Beni, my son. He says, here I am. Because when you're the main son, you're the son. S-O-N. You're it. There is no other. Now let's go to the blessings of Jacob. Who does he call my son? You can go through the whole 12 blessings, and you'll see. It's true. In the private meeting, he says, oh, I know, my son. You want me to stop switching my hands? No. Yadati b'ni yadati. I know my son. I know. So in that context, he does call him his son, and he says, "These grandchildren, they're my children." So he does say that. However, in the blessings of Jacob, when he's talking to all the children together, and we can compare, who does he call his son? It's only Jacob. He says, "You're a lion. You arose, or you can arise from the attacks. From prey, my son, you have grown." Different ways of translating, but he says, "My son, Bini." There, if you can see it, there's Bini, my son. And then again, the second one is more difficult to translate. He tethers his donkey to a vine, his donkey, my son, to a choice vine. Yeah. Some people say it means the son of a donkey. It's about donkeys, not about his son. But the word Bini definitely appears twice, and one could interpret that both times he's talking to Judah, and he says, "Judah, you're my son." With all the blessings that he gives to everybody, and including Joseph, he says, Joseph's a son of great fruitfulness, a son of grace. But he doesn't say my son. You know who his real son is? It's Judah. See the video this week about Love Grows, and you'll see more about that theory. Prediction. So that he would have nothing to do with Levi and Shimon. So, okay, so Shimon, he doesn't have anything to do with it. But also, that's why the Levites have received no hereditary portion among their kinsmen. The Lord is their portion. So they have no portion with their people. They're not part of Israel. He says, I don't want them to have any portion with me. They don't. Even though Levites repented and became the greatest tribe, they're the ones who slayed the worshippers of the idol. But the prediction came true. They would not have a portion among Jacob. They don't belong to having a portion. It could be that if they had a portion, it would be too zealous. It would not be good for the Jewish people. So if you think about it, how do you keep the family together? Jacob, in the blessings of the 12 sons, seems to know how to do that. How do you recognize the uniqueness of each child and not favor one over the other? Firstly, Rashi says you give all the blessings to everybody. You give something to everybody. You give a little bit to this part of the family, and the same kind of thing you give to that part, a little military to this part, a little military to that part, a little material blessing to this part, that part. You have the two main tribes, one from this part of the family, then from that part. In the end, Jacob learns magnificently how to divide things more evenly among the family, keeps them together, and he sets up a beautiful nation that has these three elements. We sometimes complain that the Torah doesn't talk about, how do you set up a country? Where the Rambam has laws of kings, but in the whole Talmud, what do they say about how do you run a country? But really, Jacob sets it up here. He says you got to have a good military, you got to have commerce and agriculture, and making a living, and you've got to have good leadership. And he sets it up beautifully, and that's how you keep the family together. So going back to that structure, that's how you keep it together. You have something for everybody. You make sure you go back and forth to two sides of the family, make sure everybody's covered. You focus on these three elements, and you'll have a great success. So let's review. Let's read the actual blessings. We'll call it a night. He says, "You, O Judah, your brothers shall praise. Your hand shall be at the nape of your foes. Your father's son shall bow down to you," showing that he was able to command the respect of his brothers, not by force, because he was pretending to be the viceroy. The brothers naturally use him as a leader. Judah's like a lion's whelp. And pray, my son, you have grown. Crouches, lies down like a lion. Like the kings of beasts, who dares rouse him? He's untouchable from a military point of view. The scepter shall not part from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his legs, so that the tribute shall come to him, or until Shiloh falls, and the homage of peoples be his. He tethers his ass to donkey to a vine. His donkeys fall to a choice vine. His vines are really strong. He washes his feet in wine. He's got so much wine, he can wash his clothes in wine. His robe in blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine because he's got so much wine. His teeth are whiter than milk. He's got so much milk. He's got a lot going for him. Militarily, leadership, and agriculturally. Zebulun shall dwell at the seashore. That's commerce. He shall be a haven for ships. His corner will be on Sidon, go all the way up north. Issachar is a strong bone ass, crouching down among the sheepfolds. When he saw how good was security and how pleasant was the land, he bent his shoulder to the burden. He became a toiling serf. What does that mean? Either that he lives in such a beautiful land, part of the land, very often the enemy comes there and takes over and he becomes a serf, or that he makes so much money or produce that he's taxed so highly. He becomes like a serf because he's paying so many taxes because he's so rich, right? When you're really rich, unless you play tricks like certain people, then you pay a lot of taxes. And then Dan shall govern his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be like a serpent among the road. Samson was not a plain judge. He would sneak into the Philistines and kill them. A viper by the path that bites the horse's heel so that the rider is thrown backward. Dan is an unusual kind of a figure. I wait for your deliverance. It's a prayer, perhaps, for all the blessings, all these prayers. He hopes for God's deliverance, or particularly, as Jacob said, Jacob Reuben said, maybe for the deliverance for military, because Gad is also raided by the raiders. He shall ride by the heels. Asher's bread shall be rich, and he shall provide royal dainties. His stuff is so good you could serve it on a king's table. So that's agriculture. Naphtali is it could be that his fruits produce really quickly, like a hind, or that he is a very good spokesperson for the military, that he's a good runner for the military. It's not clear. Joseph is a wild donkey. Again, that could be a military statement. Archers bitterly assailed him. Even though they tried to get him, Joseph, they tried to kill him. Or in the future, when they try to kill him, his bow stayed taut. His arms were made by Furim, by the God of Jacob, shepherd, the rock of Israel. Now notice, he's a more inspired character. He's a more, it's interesting, Joseph is a more inspired, he got the blessing of God. So it's interesting. The God of your father will help you. There's more God in his thing, because Joseph's all about God. Shaddai, blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep, blessings of breast and womb, blessings of your father surpass the blessings of their ancestors, etc. May they rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the elect of his brothers, seeming to indicate that at some level Joseph is the elect of the brothers, even though nobody recognizes it. In order to be a leader, you have to be recognized from among the brethren, and that's what Judah was. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf, consumes the foe. In the evening, he divides the spoil. For some reason, he's the youngest, whatever, or the structure we showed, he's last. So just to give you an overview of all the blessings. So I hope you appreciate this special, what they call chiastic structure of the blessings, and the notion that in the end, Jacob blesses them all and mixes up the blessings for all the different tribes in a very even kind of fashion. All right, that's our lesson for tonight. Any questions or comments?
Thank you.